What if everything you have deemed as impossible really was possible? What have you known and believed was possible your whole life? You just didn't know how to actualize it. Come and discover a world of infinite possibilities on Outside the Impossible with Venus Castleberg. On this show, we will share pragmatic tools to create the life and living you truly desire. And now, your host, Venus Castleberg.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm really excited today. I have a guest, Sylvia Remington. Sylvia is an Access Consciousness Certified Facilitator, a BARS Facilitator, Stepping Into You Facilitator, Empath, meaning she's aware, Adventurer, Lightworker, Author, Artist, and Dancer. She has found that by following the energy, so many possibilities can be created in one's world, no matter from where one is standing in their journey. She also loves creating acts of kindness, dance, social experiments. For more information about Sylvia Remington, please visit www.accessconsciousness.com/Sylvia Remington. And for me, Sylvia, truthfully, I met you like in the beginning of my Access journey. I'm not sure exactly where you were in the Access journey, but and I remember just over the years, I've just loved seeing the joy and the you that you bring to the world, and there's just such an ease and a lightness about you, and I'm just so excited to have you here on the show today. Welcome, Sylvia Remington.
Thank you for having me, Venus. I just thought it was a really nice intro, and thank you. And thank you for saying the joy, because I used to not have that. So, yeah, so thank you. I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. So let's go ahead and go back a little bit. I'd love to just give a little bit of history as far as when did you discover Access Consciousness?
I discovered Access Consciousness at the end of 2013. So when I met you, I think it was still kind of in the beginning stages of my journey with studying the work and starting to implement it. But yeah, I actually discovered it. I remember I hadn't done any other modalities before. I just remember my life wasn't really working and I was really depressed, which is kind of funny now that I've discovered so much more joy. But I thought I'd be depressed forever. So many things weren't going well. My financial situation wasn't great. And I heard a radio show with Dr. Dane here, one of the co-creators of Access. And he was so funny and laughing. And I just was laughing. I didn't know what exactly he was talking about, but it just invited me to more. And he talked about how he had had some rough things happen as he grew up, but yet he was happy and he was creating wealth. And I just was like, what the heck? If he can do it, I wonder if I could too. And in my own way. And so I was drawn to a class. The first class I ever took was a Being You, Changing the World class in October of 2013. And then it started opening things up for me. And that was the first time in a long time, it started laughing again. Like I really actually thought I was destined to be depressed my whole life and not laugh. And I mean, I really thought I was the walking embodiment of Eeyore, from like Winnie the Pooh. I thought I was like Eeyore. I was like, oh, that's me. That's who I am. But I was just so, I defined myself so incorrectly, and I didn't realize that wasn't me. So, yeah, that's a little bit. I can always talk a long time, so I'll take pauses and let you speak.
You show. Never have to. This is actually your show, so as much as you want to talk is awesome.
Oh, great.
So,
I'll do some jazz hands. Jazz hands. You can't see it, but you can feel it.
You can feel it, totally. When it comes to you, Sylvia, that is so true. I can feel it. So that is so great. I named this radio show Outside the Impossible because I really do. I've seen so many people change things that they deemed as impossible to change.
Totally, yeah.
And I would love to hear if you have one that you'd like to share with us. Like, what's one thing that you thought was impossible to change that you actually changed?
Wow. Man, there's so much. And actually, when you were saying that, I was getting a tear to my eye because I've also witnessed so many people change impossible things. Well, I mean, the first big thing was this thing of depression. Like, I thought I would be on medicine forever. I mean, I really thought the majority of my life would be sadness. So that was a big one. I mean, and I also, what kind of got paired with that was I also thought that there was no hope. and that there were no possibilities. Like, I love that your show is what it is entitled, because I thought that there was only one possibility or two possibilities. What changed for me is this awareness that there is so many possibilities and that I can always choose more. And that was like a big deal for me, because prior to that I was feeling pretty hopeless, and I also was like contemplating, not being on the planet anymore. And then when that opens up and you're given a hope again, and and you can create in so many areas, I mean, that's an invaluable gift. So that was a big one. And then also, a side note, I also used to drink completely alcoholically, and I was able to change it so that I didn't have this obsession with it through these tools and doing other stuff, but mostly these tools. So those two were like huge for me. Whew.
That's awesome.
I'm like, the energy of it. I was like, oh my God, that's a lot.
So you mentioned tools. What kind of tools did you use to change it?
Nothing. No, I just joking. No, people are like, well, so one, I mean, there's so many, and one of the tools was of changing the thing of believing I was really depressed was this tool called Who Does It Belong To? And you may have talked about this at length on the show, but it was this thing of that 99% or more of our thoughts or feelings or emotions don't even belong to us, that we're so super aware that you might drive by somebody who's angry and then suddenly start feeling anger in your body, and you think it's yours, and then you start being angry, and when I started realizing, oh, that doesn't all belong to me, like I'm just really psychic and really aware, that was such an aha for me. I mean, I really want to swear and say what I actually said when I realized I was aware. I said a bunch of expletives, because I don't know if you're supposed to swear on the show because it's OM, but I said a bunch of expletives and then go, I'm aware. Like I go like, oh, whatever, I'm aware, and so that was a big thing. And so the tool is, and we go into more depth in some of the classes, but he's just asking, okay, when any thought, feeling, or emotion comes up, asking, okay, who does this belong to? Is this mine? Wait, what is the tool? I just spaced out. Is it mine, someone else's, or something else? And if it lightens up, if you have this awareness, oh wait, it's not even mine, and you ask for that energy to return to the sender with consciousness so that they can change it, whoever that came from, it lightens it up in your world, and you start realizing not everything I'm feeling, not everything I'm experiencing is mine, including the depression. Like a lot of times we might have grown up with somebody who was severely depressed, and so we almost like took it out of them and started, like almost healing their bodies and started to mimic them. And when you start realizing not everything is yours, it creates so much more freedom of choice. That was one of the tools, and there's so many others.
We might dive into more if you guys are lucky. We'll see.
Yeah. No more tools. That's enough. We got it.
Check.
Check. Sorry. Bye.
Chris is like, whoa, wait, hang on a second.
Chris is like, no. It's an hour. Keep talking.
You got to keep walking. Yep. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Yep. That's a great tool. And, truthfully, guys, if you really want to get free, if you use Who Does This Belong To for every thought, feeling, and emotion that comes into your field for the next 3 days, you will experience freedom in a way you never have before. It was one of those tools. Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, you go. Keep going. I was just going to say, I just remembered something where I used that tool and it shocked me so much, but I wanted you to finish your thought. I got excited.
I love it when you get excited. Go, share the story. I've got mine later.
Okay. Well, so I was using this tool, and another tool that we use in Access is what's true for you makes you feel lighter, and a lie makes you feel heavier. So, if if you're experiencing the lightness of life, or if when you ask a question, is this mine, and it's heavy, that means it's not yours. It's like not true for you. And so I was using the who does it belong to tool. Actually, there's an app for it that I guess there's like you can look on iTunes. It's called the Who Does It Belong to Access Consciousness app. It's free. And I was using it, and and every 10 minutes or so, it does an alarm to ask the question, who does this belong to? So I was flying on an airplane, and my whole life I thought I had motion sickness. And I asked the question as I was flying, starting to feel nauseous. I said, who does this belong to? And I was so shocked it wasn't mine. I asked energetically for it to return to whoever, and the nausea went away. And I was like, what the heck? This is magic. It was so cool. So, I mean, it can even work not just even for emotional states, but just for everything. And it's so surprising. Like, for me, it was this constant unveiling of things because I hadn't done any energy type work prior to Access. So I just kept going like, wait, what? What? So it was pretty cool.
That's very cool. And would you just explain a little bit, because there might be somebody out there that's like, well, I don't want to give it back to them, or I don't want them to suffer, or I don't want it to be bad for them. Would you say a little bit more about kind of what Return to Sender actually does? And
yeah, and if you want to add some stuff too, because I sometimes I think I'm saying things and then I just think them. And so in terms of, when I first heard that and I heard Return it to Sender, I was like, I don't want to give that to that person and make them feel horrible. Like, I mean, I'd rather take it myself, but the thing is one thing is when you return it, you don't just return all the crap to them. You're returning that energy to the person who it comes from with consciousness, so they can actually change it, because it's truly only the people that it's generated from that can actually change it. Like for me, if I stub my toe and somebody else is somehow feeling the pain, only I can heal that pain. And if I'm, and only I can heal that pain. So it's like, I guess that's part of it. Do you have an awareness with that as well?
Yeah. So I definitely, this is kind of the misconception. We think that if we're taking it from someone that they no longer have it. The truth is you can't take it from them, so now you both have it.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
You're sharing their pain, which is what I've done most of my life, and I'm like, that's not fun. It doesn't make me happy.
Right. Doesn't really work. Well, and I know for me too, I've noticed, and I've worked through it a lot, but my body, a lot of our bodies actually have the healing capacity, and so our bodies just do it even automatically.
Yes.
So then that asking that question, who does it belong to, then goes, oh, it's not mine. I can return it to Sender, with consciousness attached, but like for me, I have my partner's been discovering that he has not a great reaction to like popcorn, when he eats it. So,
yes.
And what was funny was like we used to date long distance. So he used to live in Phoenix and I lived in Telluride, Colorado. Mm-hmm. And I would be at work or something like that, and I get this horrible pain in my stomach. And then I'd be like, who does this belong to? And I would get this awareness that it was his, and it returned it to Sender. Well, what was interesting was he wasn't even getting his own awareness around food because my body was trying to take it for him.
Ah, yeah.
So when I returned it to Sender, he goes, wow, now that when I eat that stuff, it hurts. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I was actually even being a little superior and thinking that I could take it from him, and he wasn't even able to get his own awareness because it lessened his response to it. So then when I stopped doing that, he could be more aware, like, oh, this actually doesn't work for me, or it does, or, and things change. But it's like, just like we think that somehow taking it from somebody too is helping them, when in actuality it disempowers them and it's unkind, right?
Yeah.
Because how long does it take for them to get their own awareness, then? Because we're buffering it somehow. So.
Totally. I was, I'm sorry, I get really excited. I'm learning about pausing between conversations.
You're doing great.
The thing that really made me get this tool, and it wasn't even anything I'd heard in Access, is I saw this, I think it was a meme or something, where it showed somebody who was trying to help a caterpillar emerge from a cocoon to become a butterfly. And it showed this person opening the cocoon because they wanted to help the butterfly. And to me, that's the same thing as taking this stuff from people. And so what invariably happened with this one situation was that this person was trying to be helpful, open the cocoon, but the butterfly, the way it developed its wings is by pushing through that cocoon and doing it itself. And that gave it the ability to fly. And so by us, like, trying to take this from other people, it doesn't allow people that, like what you said, the empowerment to truly forge their way and fly. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Okay, I can stop now, because I had that image. I was like, I don't want to hurt the butterfly.
Oh, we want to encourage you to grow. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's an awesome example, and thank you for that. And we're going to take a break here in just a second, so I wanted to go ahead and say, if you guys want to call in and ask Sylvia any questions, we're going to start talking about creating beyond feelings right after the break. And the phone number is 202-570-7057.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
What is magnificent about you that you've never acknowledged? Are you ready to let your own light shine? What if you were 1,000 times more potent and powerful than you give yourself credit for? What if there was a monthly call that is designed specifically to empower you to be all you can be? Would that be fun for you? Venus Castleberg is now offering a magnificent monthly membership for only $50 a month. Mention this ad and receive 50% off. To register or for more information about the membership, events, and services, please go to www.venuscastleberg.com. Is now the time to be different?
Tune in to The Practical Intuitive, Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World with me, host Robin Fritz, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern. I'll cover personal and business intuition, animal communication, mediumship, space clearing, past life regression, shamanic insights, energy healing, soul choice, and more, all to help you tap your own intuitive and healing skills. No ifs, ands, or buts.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited. I'm here with Sylvia Remington, and before the break, we were talking about a tool in Access Conscious called Who Does This Belong To? And I'd love to shift gears just a little bit, because actually our topic today was to talk about creating beyond feelings. Could you say a little bit more about that, Sylvia? What did you mean by that?
So for me, well, I don't feel like talking about that. No, I'm just joking. No, well,
Great example.
yeah. So Venus had reached out to me and said, like, what would be a fun topic? And I was thinking about, going like, creating or taking action when you don't feel like it. And what I meant by that is just for me, I always come up with a ton of ideas, and then a lot of times I just don't take any action on them. Like, I mean, I've gotten better through the years, from using these tools. And so, sometimes, I mean, there's tools in place that you can use to start actually choosing and taking action even when you don't feel like it. And oftentimes, if you just start taking, I'm saying action a lot, but if you start taking action, the feelings kind of dissipate. So that's really kind of general. But the main thing is I just thought it was an interesting conversation because so many times we have these great ideas of what we'd like to create in the world, but we don't do anything with them. Or we're just like sitting there and like at home watching Netflix and eating Cheetos. I mean, I've done that many a time. I'm like, my life is rough. I'm going to just eat Cheetos. It's so good. But I'm just, having a conversation about, what does it take just to start taking action and not making it so significant and also not trying to get it right. Sort of. That's kind of a general.
Oh, yeah, but you're going to have to say more about that not getting it right. What? We're not supposed to get it right?
Yeah, I mean, this is, okay, so I have a lot of experience of trying to get everything right. I was like, in school, I was trying to be a straight A student. I wanted to be good at everything, perfectionist, all this stuff. And, man, I'm grateful I'm starting to change it. It's still a work in progress. Even in the classes I've been in, I was trying to get the questions right. I would ask the teacher, I was like, oh my God, help. So,
I was trying to get consciousness right.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm still trying to get it right, but it's not working out so well. And so now I'm just like, okay, I just make more choices, kind of go towards things. But man, it's such a big conversation. I guess the main thing is that, like, what if there isn't a right or wrong choice? What if you can just choose? And like, how much pressure does that take off of you? Because for me, I always was like, well, I really want to save the world. And I had this goal, like, I mean, it was definitely a goal. And like, I was like, I'm going to save the world. But then I was trying to find all the right choices for saving the world. And and I got so frozen on what to do that I just did nothing. Instead of going like, okay, what would be fun to do next? And what if just making smaller choices would create so much more? I know, gosh, I kind of opened up a can of worms here because it's a really big conversation.
That's all right. We still have a half hour, so you're good to go.
Oh, good. Can we go for 2 hours? No, I'm just joking.
It's a bidding war now.
Yeah. Nobody else can come on. Yeah, and I started doing that by using this tool of the 10-second increments. And I can talk more about that. Unless do you have some things about, like, getting it right and...
I would actually love to hear about the 10-second increments. I think that's a great place to go. So
okay, cool.
How did you change this? Yeah.
Well, so for me, for a lot of these tools I learned in Access Consciousness, initially I didn't really understand what in the world they were talking about, and I just kept going to classes and using things as I understood them, and also just practicing them until I finally started getting what was going on. And so the 10-second increment, to me, this is my impression of it, it's this tool to kind of practice the muscle of action. And this is totally my impression of it. And so what it is it's a tool that you can even get the book 10 Keys to Total Freedom by Gary Douglas and Dane Heer. And it's a tool within this book and also within a lot of the classes in which, you feel free to pipe in if I'm just getting it a little off, but you ask, okay, so if I had 10 seconds to live the rest of my life, what would I choose? And when I first heard that, I was like, well, if I only had 10 seconds to live, I would just be focused on dying. So, and so I was like, I don't get what this tool is. But really what it is, and so it's not really that. It's more just this ability in the moment you're in to ask the question, okay, in this moment, what can I choose? And it's almost like a tool of getting really present in the moment and going, okay, in this moment, what can I choose? And then 10 seconds later go, okay, now what can I choose? And it takes it away from being super significant and you're projecting into the future. And instead you're just like, okay, what can I choose? So for example, if I woke up and I didn't want to wake up in the morning because I had all this stuff to do. If instead I was just like, okay, what can I choose? Okay, I'm going to just sit up and get up. Okay, now what can I choose? I'm going to go grab a coffee. Okay, now what can I choose? I'm going to pace around and look like I'm doing something. And then, after a while of doing that, maybe I'll do that for like a long time. And then I'm like, okay, this is getting boring. Now what can I choose? And it's like, oh, maybe I'll draw a little bit. And now what can I choose? And so I recently, I wasn't actually using this tool because it sounded too difficult. And so what I did instead, and I just thought, oh, it sounds complicated. So I set a timer for myself. This is my way to force myself into it and just into action. And I said, okay, I set a timer for 15 minutes or 10 or 15 minutes. And I just said, for 15 minutes, I'm going to just keep asking what next. And because when it's open-ended, I was just like, screw that. But 15 minutes, I can do this for 15 minutes. And I found within 15 minutes, I got so much done. And it generated this energy throughout my body where I was like, oh my gosh, I actually, I'm going to say feeling, but I actually felt like doing more things. And I was just in that awareness of like, oh, what else can I do? And so that's a little bit of my experience with that tool.
That's awesome. And then this also, one of the things about 10-second increments, guys, is that, choice creates awareness. So,
totally.
But awareness doesn't create choice. It's not like you get aware and then you can choose. It's like, no, choose something and then you gain awareness. So the other part of this I really liked with the 10-second increments was like getting us out of the right and the wrong. It's like, choose something. If you don't like what it's creating, choose something different.
Yeah, and that you can choose something different. It's so nice. How
and
much
instantly.
Focus on
yeah, you could choose something and be like, oh, this is really not very fun. I'm going to choose something different. But a lot of us believe that because we make a choice, and I think this is where we get hung up, is we make a choice, and then that means that we have to stick to that choice forever and ever, so help you God. And,
Totally.
Just because you get married to somebody doesn't mean you have to stay married to them forever.
What?
I'm sure. I'm sure I got a few twists there. Now, I'm not saying you can't, but I'm just saying it's a choice, right? So,
Well, and that you're never in an all or nothing situation. You always have another choice. And I just said what because I thought it was funny, but because I always thought if you choose like a career route, you have to stay with that. Or after I had like very interesting points of view where I was like, okay, after I turned 40, I have to stay in this job. It's just really weird. And so it totally limited the choices I could make because I thought this is my only choice. And I love that, what you said, just that you can keep choosing, that there are more possibilities at all moments. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I had that too. Like I made myself wrong for a long time for not having a career. And I was like, well, I do actually have a career. It's transformation. I've studied 20 different modalities all on how to transform lives and make things easier and more fun and make more money, So, but some people would be like, well, pick one. And I'm like, well, I don't want to pick one. I like them all, and I only use the tools that actually work right now. The tools that create greater ease for me are actually access conscious tools. And, what have I gained from all of that other studying, and
totally. I really love what you said about transformation because, because it's really like, as we choose just all these different things, like you walking in the world are just transforming the space just by you being you and making a choice and just showing up. I don't know. I just got this like really overarching thing when you said, your career is like transformation, because really just you being in the world is transformation. It's really cool.
Yeah.
That energy. I was just like, oh, that's a cool energy.
It's a great energy. So what would you say is the difference between creating from feelings versus creating beyond feelings?
Oh, dude. Let's see. That's a great question, and I'm going into a beyond spacing out for that one. Maybe I don't have the awareness on that one yet. That's probably why I'm on here.
Maybe just explain to our listeners a little bit of what do you mean by creating beyond feelings? Like, what are feelings, even in this conversation?
Let me see. Let's see. What can I say? That's so funny. Okay, everywhere I'm spacing out, I'm clearing it. What was the first question you asked? You first asked, like, what's the difference between creating from feelings
from feelings versus creating beyond feelings? Yeah.
Okay, that one. I can kind of go there. And let me know if we're going to a break or something. Let's see. So creating from feelings, like for me, I actually didn't create a whole lot when I was creating from feelings. Like a lot of the feelings that would come up, or I do a lot of waiting. Like I'd wait for the feeling to feel right. You know how you said earlier about like, a lot of people wait for the awareness and then choose. Well, for me, I would wait to feel good and then choose. And so when I was creating that way, I didn't actually create a whole lot because I was always waiting to feel better. I was like waiting to feel like an epiphany and then create something. Whereas creating beyond feelings was creating anyways, and then like awesome, expansive feelings show up, or it's like not making those feelings super relevant. It's the same with like when I used to drink, I kept feeling like I needed to drink, but then I would the way I got out of it, I mean, there were so many things, so that's like a big conversation unto itself, but I would just start taking actions that had nothing to do with my feelings. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to just choose to go out and move my body. And I didn't wait for those feelings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so for me, creating from feelings, I just kept waiting to feel good and waiting for the like fear to go away and waiting. And what if you can feel those things that come up, because there's a lot of things you can do to clear them, especially in access, and then choose anyways and watch how certain things dissipate and change. So that's kind of more the energy of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not spaced out anymore. This is good.
Okay, good. I love what Gary says. He says, if you wait for motivation comes from action. Like, be in action and then you'll get motivated. But we seem to think it's the other way. Yeah, seem to think it's the other way. Like, somehow I'll get motivation and then I can be in action. It's like, no, just be in action and then it'll happen.
Totally. I mean, it's kind of like that thing of, like I kept saying, oh, if I take another class, then I'll be motivated to act. Or if I watch another Netflix movie, then I'll be motivated to act. But truly, it's like, okay, just act. Right. And then you actually start getting this energy going. And it's like this thing, once you start something, your body naturally wants to keep moving and going and creating. And and also, and this is probably another topic for the future or something, but also asking for things that actually light you up makes you so you want to kind of go for it too.
And just out of curiosity, because I'd love to see if it's possible. So when we're in the feeling of things like I don't want to, I can't, I'm going to fail, whatever that is, who does this belong to? Would that tool work here too?
Absolutely not. Now, yes, it would totally would. And thank you for that, because sometimes I forget. Even, after doing this for a while, sometimes with your own self, it's easy to see it in somebody else, but for yourself, you're like, oh yeah. Because a lot of times, even with fear, let's say, even going on the radio today, I've done this, I've been on some podcasts before, but like there was that little bit of that fear or whatever, and I all of a sudden I did actually ask, who does this belong to? And I realized, like, oh, there's so many people that are going online for the first time, or, you know, and the fear of public speaking, and how aware are we of what other people experience? And also, yeah, I have so much more to say on that, but.
Well, yeah, and I also
that's a
think
great
that
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sometimes that's, thank you for saying that, because that is also going, okay, so, you know, sometimes we try to stop ourselves from success. We try to stop ourselves from happiness. And so it's like, what if, you know, those things that we think are trepidation or fear or whatever is actually just one of those things that show up that are trying to stop us from being great, from showing up, from choosing greater. So.
Totally. And the thing is I had this faulty point of view that if you're really great, you don't experience that. It's no longer there. But then I heard this interview with Marie Forleo and Elizabeth Gilbert talking about creating, and Elizabeth Gilbert, who's this great, you know, she's a prolific author. She said she always feels fear, but she says, okay, I notice it and I choose anyways. And she says, I just notice it's a companion on the road to creativity, and I keep choosing and keep going. And I just, that opened my eyes big time. So.
Yeah, and it's awesome for me because I've, you know, scheduled a radio show, so I can't not show up.
Exactly.
Right? So, awesome. Well, we're going to take a short break. If you guys have any questions for Sylvia, please call in at 202-570-7057.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Who said life had to be hard and disempower you? What if all of life really could come to you with ease and joy? What if everything you saw as a wrongness of you was actually one of your greatest strengths? What if you could wake up every morning with a newfound sense of empowerment? Join Venus Castleberg to discover a world of infinite possibilities. Every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, Morning Musings goes live on the Venus Castleberg CF Facebook page. What magic can we create every day?
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hello and welcome back. I'm here with Sylvia Remington talking about creating beyond feelings. And right before the break, I asked would the tool, who does this belong to, work here? And, 98% of our thoughts, feelings, and emotions are not even ours. So is it possible that, the things that stop you from choosing in life that you call your feelings may not even be yours? Like, and
Yeah.
even a voice in your head that maybe your mom said, like, you're never going to be successful, or you're never going to be great, whatever, all sorts of things can go through our head. So those sorts of things, like that sort of negative self-talk, can stop us too from choosing. Do you have a trick for that, Sylvia, and like how to, if you're not asking who does this belong to, how do you stop listening to maybe the negative self-talk or the voices in your head?
Oh, that's a great question. Man, because I've had a lot of those. Well, there is, I get probably the clearing statement. You don't talk about that on here, or
we do.
There's this.
Yep.
Oh, you do.
Yep.
Well, there's this the clearing statement from Access, which is a bunch of words that go to the kind of the heart of like limitation and clear it. I use that for more information. You can go to theclearingstatement.com. Yeah, man, that's a tough one because I've had a lot of limiting thoughts, and so the who does it belong to is a big one. Another one is using the clearing statement. So when that energy comes up of like, you're a piece of crap, or like you're never going to get this done, you're never. I'll use the clearing statement, which is right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And it really is like you don't have to understand it for it to work. It just goes to that energy and starts clearing it so you can have more awareness and more space. That's one thing. One big thing I was just also getting is that a lot of times all those thoughts will come up, and the pure act of taking action and going beyond your comfort zone will start shifting it. And it seems so insurmountable just to take that step. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I had this awareness to go and try out stand-up comedy. And it was from a class. Dane here said to me, you should try up stand-up comedy. And it's not something I had to do. But so I go and I sign up for this open mic night. And I was there, and I felt like I was going to poop my pants, first of all. And I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I feel so stressed out. And in my head, there was all these crazy thoughts. And I think the first time I went there, I actually signed up, I waited in line, and then I ran out the door, and I didn't come back. And then I was like, but for some reason, I'm supposed to go here. And I still have the limiting thoughts. But then there was something within me that if I took action, it would create so much more in my life. So I just forced myself to be so beyond uncomfortable. I went on the stage. I had something prepared. I think I did probably a really terrible job. I was like, and then I went to the store. And then, and it was like, they flashed a light in my eyes, like, get off the stage. And I got off, and I was like, oh, my God. But just the pure act of doing it, there was something, like, within me, this sense of empowerment, like, oh, dude, I chose that. And all those crazy thoughts kind of went away because I just was like, oh man, I chose even though I was freaked out. And there's something about that really assists. There's so many other things too. When I have those thoughts, I also do this, it's almost like a centering exercise where I've heard Dane here talk about it, where if I'm sitting, I just notice 3 points in my body where I connect to the earth, like feel my feet on the floor reaching up to touch my feet. I put my hand on like my stomach or my heart, and then I feel my butt on the seat, and I just take a moment and I become present with my body, and I breathe in and breathe out. And oftentimes when I'm doing that and breathing in and breathing out, and then I start noticing, I do kind of like an expansion exercise, and that actually helps me get more present with me, and less of those thoughts kind of go in my head. And I can go more into that exercise too, but is there anything that's popping for you with things you do when you have those crazy thoughts in your head?
Well, I would love, actually, you said something else that I'd love for you to talk about. You said something about being uncomfortable and doing it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I'm uncomfortable and I don't do it.
Right.
And then the thoughts keep going and like hitting around in my head. And then but yeah, that thing of being uncomfortable and doing it anyway, man, even if you do little things, it really empowers you to take another step and another step. And even if the uncomfortable thing is just leaving the house for the day, some people, like, you might work from home, and just going out and interacting with the world and engaging with the world feels like this insurmountable task. But if you just go outside and drive to like a corner store and just grab some water and say hello and be present with the person you're with and just ask them about their world, it takes you out of that crazy thought in your mind. Or yeah.
Yeah, you could even, yeah, there was a great example. A little over a year ago, there was, and I think you were even part of it too, they did this 30-day video challenge.
Yeah.
And I had so much resistance to videos. Like, I was teleclasses, I've been doing teleclasses before a lot of people I know. Like, that never was a thing for me, but videos, man. And I did 30 days. I did them on the days I didn't even want to do them, and I was like grumpy and whatever and messy and, but at the end of that 30 days, I also no longer had a resistance to videos. And now I do videos all the time.
I know, and now you do it all the time. It's great. Yeah, it's that willingness to show up no matter how you are. And you know what helped? One thing that really helped me for doing any of these challenges, or even just getting myself to do something, is being willing to be like horrible at something. Like, and actually making it a point to try to do a horrible job. And it actually got me to do it. Like, okay, I'm just going to go, like, especially even with the stand-up comedy, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go out there and do the worst job. And, I tried it a couple times. The second time was a little better. But it's like...
Is it time for round number 3?
Oh, yeah, maybe. It's like, it's been a while, so now I'm like, no, I can't do it. Yeah, that might actually be amazing. Man, oh, wow, that brings up stuff for me. Okay, I'm clearing that for myself. Clearing it. I'm going to do it now that...
Okay,
cool.
Awesome. So I think Joseph just joined us. Joseph, you have a question for Sylvia?
I do. Sylvia, thank you so much for doing the call today. This is awesome. And I love what you're saying about, doing what scares you, and being willing, and in fact, this is going to be part of my question, was being willing to fail, or embracing the suck. Like, if I'm going to suck at something, I might as well just embrace it and just run with it. When you're coaching people or talking to people, how are you in? So I don't necessarily do facilitation, but I do business creation. I have a lot of guys on a sales team that I coach around the country, and so I'm always looking for ways of not being that. I don't really have a desire to be a manager. I have a desire to help people create their life. And so how, when you're helping people create stuff and seeing the greatness of them and embracing the suck or whatever, what is it that you're trying to get across to them?
That's a great question. And, a lot of times I'll just go to a question with a person and just ask them what they know about that. Because oftentimes we have a knowing, and that's one. But like this thing of embracing the suck, a big thing for me is just mentioning to people of just doing small things, like small wins. Like just being willing, because a lot of times we put this huge, immense pressure on ourselves to do something huge right away. And oftentimes it's those small, almost like it feels like imperceptible habits, or creating a small win that creates so much change. Like, for example, I heard about, and this was just, I heard from somebody else, it wasn't one of my clients, but where this guy was having a hard time actually just taking action on working out. And so he kept trying to do an hour a day, and it wasn't working. So he said, you know what I can commit to is 1 minute a day. And a few people were laughing, like, 1 minute a day, no way. But, like, sometimes just the habit of doing something, just being willing to do something for a minute or two, it gives you a small win, and it kind of allows so much more. So, man, in terms of business, and also Venus, if you have an awareness too, because Venus has a lot of awareness with business as well. I'm like putting it off on her. I'm gonna think of some more things. Yeah, good job. Not I'm feeling the fear and putting it off on somebody else. So you could do that too, but that might not be as effective.
That is a masterful manipulation and skill set.
Thank you. I'm very astute with this. But while she's talking, I can think of something else. Oh man.
So, well, I think that was great, Sylvia, really. I mean, just like giving yourselves a small win, it doesn't, I think she's right. We do tend to put these really big expectations on ourselves and on our businesses and our bodies and stuff. And it's like, if you don't give yourself something that you actually can accomplish and pat yourself, go, good job, I did that then you're almost always going to be focused on what you didn't do. So acknowledging, being grateful for what you did do, what you did accomplish, however small you think it is a huge way to grow things. And the next thing you know, I know for me, I'll talk about running because this is funny, because people used to always talk about the endorphins in running, and I'd be like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Running's painful. I hate it. I don't want to do it. I can't run barely a mile, and then
this is so helpful for me, by the way.
That's awesome.
These are all things I've said recently, so thank you. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. So, and then I started trail running, and I really loved trail running. I loved just being outside and being on trails, but I didn't have an expectation of how far I'd go. I just started running. And then, one day I ran, and then the next day I ran again because I liked how it felt. And then next day I ran again. And then the next thing I know, I'm running one day, and every day I'm running a little bit farther, I'm a little bit farther. And one day I'm like, wow, like I feel great. Why do I feel so good? And I'm like, that's that endorphin thing people have been telling me about so long, but I had never hit it before, so I didn't know it even existed. I didn't believe anybody. But I built that up to that. And then when I got to that, then I was like, well, now I know it does exist. So I know if I can make myself run at least 2.5 miles, I'll hit. And everybody's endorphin point is different, but I know where mine is. And so now I'm like, well, as long as I can run to that point, I'll always get that endorphin hit. So
awesome.
Yep.
I just thought of something else too.
Yeah,
like
please.
random. It's like,
cool.
And I'm excited. I'm going to re-listen to this running thing, so I'll get motivated to actually run. And that's outside my comfort zone. I just before we wrap up, I was like all of a sudden thinking of, with business, asking your staff or whoever you're running what they're amazing at, like just to tell you more about what they find really easy for them. And if you're doing that this may or may not, it just popped a little bit, like asking people what they're really good at and what they really enjoy doing, even if it's not even within the business. And oftentimes within that, there is a way that people do things with such ease that it allows other people to step out of their comfort zone and choose those things and see how it can be even easier to do it. I don't know if that's, yeah.
Yes.
Kind of like running. Sylvia.
Yeah. I have a block with running. Okay. Clear the block. Clear it. Oh, wait. It's no longer there. I cleared it. No, it might.
It can be that easy, too.
Yeah, right?
Thank you.
Did you have a specific question, Joseph, or are we about to wrap up right now?
We have a couple more minutes.
I guess the specific question I had is, as I'm helping people get and I love the fact that this is creating beyond your feelings, is because so many times I've talked to guys and they're like, they're scared to pick up the phone. They're scared to make an initial contact. It's like they're more terrified than that. I could pull a gun on them and they would be less frightened than the daggone phone. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to be in their shoes, and I know I'm not doing a good job at it. So I guess that's one of the things I'm looking at is how do I help someone move past that feeling, beyond that feeling.
Oh, okay. I've actually experienced that because I have this reticence to being on the phone too. Is some of the things we mentioned is being willing to do the worst job ever at it. And just being like, you know what, just start. And the thing is you could even say, hey, what if you practice the muscle of calling? Like, this is just a practice, even though it's a job. Oh, we're wrapping up. And also who doesn't belong to. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I want to keep talking. Joseph,
awesome.
Call back.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. How do people find you, Sylvia?
I can be found at accessconsciousness.com/Sylvia Remington, or you can find me on Facebook. I'm kind of dancing, and a guy is looking at me weird, and my name is SylviaRemington, and I'm in the process of making a website. I still need to work on that. So, okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, my dear. Thank you, Joseph, for the question.
Yeah, thank you. That was awesome.